we're in an age of defined, since World War II, by expressive individualism, which would define happiness or blessedness as the ability of me to tell you what I'm all about and for me to market myself to you, if you like. This is who I am. I need to work very hard to have my hair just right and my clothes just right and see the music I'm listening to. Do you see this? This is how I describe myself to you, and I have to look deep into myself to find myself. And in this article, there's such a stark contrast, I think, between that and this very psalm-influenced Anglo-Saxon idea that we look outside ourselves and specifically to the role that God has for us and to God's definition of blessedness, God's definition of happiness, whatever that is, and that if we see that we are blessed according to His definition, not our own, we count it so. How do we get to that place as Christians today? I look at my own reactions to circumstances in my own life, and I have to confess I much more fall off on the side of the world's definition of happiness than David's idea of blessedness. So how do we get from where we are today back to that, and how can the Psalms help us with that?
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily opposed to the word happiness, but the way we think about happiness is a giddiness or a selfish, self-indulgent pleasure that is focused upon myself, it's found within myself, and that certainly is not the biblical context of blessedness or even the New Testament words that are being used there, or the Psalm. Yeah. And yet, when we think of joy, joy is a fruit of the Spirit. It's not something that is in us. It's fruit of the Spirit. It's something contrasted with that old flesh that is within us. And yet it is not something that we get by directly seeking after it. It's a fruit of the Spirit. It comes as we directly seek the Lord. And as we seek the Lord and have this relationship with Him, then the fruit of the Spirit is the product that comes out from it. And that is the blessed man. And the blessedness of that is quite transcendent beyond our circumstances. If we are pursuing a happiness and we're finding it as being some kind of pleasure for the moment and making us more happy in either what we can have or our circumstances, or pursuing something that has no problems in life whatsoever, not only will that never be fulfilled, but it doesn't give even the proper perspective of life, because these things are going to be found in God and only in God. And so when we think of something quite contrary or external to ourself, that's where the satisfaction of the soul is going to come. I was contemplating on this idea even as it relates to Sabbath rest. And as we think about the Sabbath is undergirded with an entire theology of rest, which is not merely a cessation of activity, but God's rest Himself, His creative rest. When He created the world in 6 days, He looked back upon it and He rested, satisfied with the goodness of what He had. It's that rest that we are invited to enjoy. It is His rest, like it is His joy. It's the fruit of it's the Spirit's joy that we are having, even in quite diverse and very difficult circumstances. We can have a joy that's transcendent. And again, it's not this giddy happiness. It's not merely just emotion. It goes much deeper than that. And this is that one who is dwelling in the presence of God knows a transcendent joy and blessedness of life that goes far beyond emotion, though it includes it, but it also goes down into the deep places and the recesses where he is living in communion with God and knows this joy beyond the circumstances. Look at Jesus. It was for the joy set before Him that He endured the shameful death of the cross.